exist from its own side. So being the reason for the reason that it's dependent arising proves for them that it exists from its own side. And so for such a person, the reasoning of dependent arising can't be used to establish not existing from its own side. And therefore it's as if for the time being, they are like beyond help. They're kind of incurable. No.
Jotobares, Tabong, Jotan Canderes, the Lavina, that young Godeo on the Chen Baji Shubin, Penang around to Shacho, Nuchos, or the Dosachil Dene, Shadava Matoji, you Rangumene, Shar Singiji, Deva the Juzuachi Medachi. Carresena, a little more chalk carres, Skeja Tijuna, Soso Rani, Ula Shaje. And Susugi chot netsibe and Sharon Jotella and the Shars, Nungo Jotella Nus, or those ten, Lava Mato Chigi, Shichila Matube, Sharta Nub Rosingi, and Niam Hedda. The Tig Tilatene in Naya, Tune Shabamato, Maturama Chosing, Niam. And Niamang Shui was. When the Sharcho singing, Maturon, near even Tandangaranzo, Zuzuya, reading on Joti, that Shares, Lagochirwas. But that Tagarana and Padu Church, Shar Yisha Church, Padroshan, Namdu Change, Pachishavina, Yunzuchine, Nungo Jotilla, and the young ones, that the Muslim readings, and those watching this. Kanda, Sharsne, Tamati Nungo Jotin, the lay with us. Both those chene, and Tune Shasha. Sharnub said, Dune Shawamato, Matuaki, Medava. That thing around Lord Chardewood was.
No. As for the way in which things exist, how things are posited in relation to other things, exist in relation to other things. If you think about the different directions, north, east, south, and west, there's nothing which is east, north, southwest from its own side. It's always has to be relative to something else. So in other words, we can talk about something being, relative to yourself in the middle, in a sense. We'll see. Yeah. Something like iPad iPad pop and it
Very interesting.
Okay, so yeah, so you can't just say east, north, south, west. It's relative to you that you can talk of something being east of here, west of here, north of here, south of here. Otherwise, like for example, I think I talked about this before, where you are, from where you are, there might be a particular mountain you say that's east of you, and if you were to go to that place, that place that you've pointed out as being east of you, the mountain in the east, whether you fly or however you get there, then you don't call it the mountain in the east anymore, do you? Where you were is maybe, I don't know, east or west or whatever, but anyway. So it's relative to something else. Like, for example, relative to yourself. And you can see that also because, like, we talk about going west, 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 west. If you think that east, northeast, southwest are kind of like something fixed, then how would it be that when you keep traveling west, you end up in the east? Which is true, isn't it? You keep going west from here, you end up in places that we call the east. But actually, so anyway, that kind of situation.
상당해 전부다 중중 릉보다 통우 로와다 옹아 생이 두둑한가 되네 샤워 댄데르데 두었어
And no, in a similar way, we talk about good and bad. Those are also relative. You talk about something being good relative to something else, something bad being relative to something else is bad. Long and short, big and small, and so forth. High and low. They're all. You can only talk about them. Something being high, low, short, long, relative to something else.
Korea ye debaji lenyo pambe ene tarwa singeji toba ye debaji rede de tene shawamato ene mateba me debaji ta jibatine jingdogo duwas.
And so also, so here we have the idea of worldly convention, worldly conventions. So cyclic existence is something that doesn't exist in and of itself. It exists relative to something else. Nirvana likewise exists relative to other factors. So when, which means that, due to karma and the mental afflictions, then we wander in cyclic existence. And then when we free ourselves from karma and the mental afflictions, then we achieve liberation. So this all works in the context of everything existing relative to others.
That tinde indu tandangaran tsugi ji gaje namzus namin shenchuti kandeji yaresna sungzin dinyi go didarina sadre ta khandar jawa kesan janju nguchi yare ni gi nyebe shemur milami yu gyumelebe tata langboso kana shidir dongi 주베치 nga야메바 로이 따바장스 다 nga란츠기 뇽에날라 닐람날야 강바도다 된데 담다 카레 지 윤종 담다 칸데르지 베디 야메나 감다 중유나르 야메나 김난거 초가 유나르 니징예베 셴고 밀람이 칸데지 예베 있나야 야메나 규마킹게 담다 성능 칸데지 주샤 예베 있나야 대족강가 로이 따바마도 무스 녀요 말바스 디데 베레 니기녀베 셴물 멜람유 니기녀베다 멜람유테다 규멜레베 따달랑보니데 베레 가나시데 던기 주베체 가야메바 로이 따바잠스 다 다가 나시스 다다셴 코와냥데 디신 다신 코와냥데소 추구 로다 민기 따발레 다신 남기데 가요 마미소 다 dak신남 기띵네 제네 가야 녀요 말바스 대다 디 베드네jar 다 무스타 게제테와티 카르 슈베이나 대다 트벨로라 남바이 데샤 대다 트벨로라 남바이 나서 되네 트벨 둘루디 가자 참모임 로용어 하마메바 키바 신드제스 대다 트벨로라 남바이 나서 되네 주바다부지 난그도 와스 디다 가자 참모르다스 나서 되네 주베 둘루디 가자 참모임바 로용어 하마메바 키바 신드제스 다티바라 등에 쇼로가 찍채보다 양교직만 등기 니기녀베 셴모 밀람이 규멜레베 따단 랑보소 가나시데 던기 주베주 가야메바 로이 따바잠스 디베트체 디신 다신 코와냥데서 죽을로다 민기 타니기 따바잠네 다신는 게 가야요바 마미스체 대단나야 마리 니두키스 어ting에 체도와 대단나야 마리 니두 마란츠 딘디지 레드레데 다 통화메바는 콤베왕기 딘징기 아니 레바 왕기 대단나야 말이 니두기 막베 수수기 초중고 강나시들 던지 주바시 차주 랑레롱에 딜테스 다 ngaranzu susui kiwole thoma meba ne denzini chingbe wangi ti lebe wangi ji shikanda kana na ya ane ji yudini yobata buji nangiduwas tedana ya mari nidu gu babu susui kiwo tsuru kana shider tonji chubashi chazuran chawati ngaranzu nyamnyo nane hakoya duwas susu nyongzo nane otati gajaru de zoru dirwa 대단나야 말이 니도 바베 수수기고 추론 가나시도 던지 주바시 차주 랑레 롱엔들 때스 딘데지 인자 대다 추벨로 나와이 나서 뇌네 주바다지 나야 다가라 가자 탐모르다스 가자 탐모 임바 로용을 항마미 거 개바 신제스다 베드 중세장 베지 시대 지 주주사도지 미대 malabaj gores milam da yumani de pela jane an tande su jangyo.
No. So here we're looking at the first line of verse 5, where it says, if the duality of subjects and objects is as it seems to be. So there is a verse, there are some verses in a Song of the View, because it's Dawikur. No, it's a Song of the View composed by the Kazan Gyatso, so one of the earlier, the seventh Dalai Lama, in fact. So that there he first of all talks about some certain analogies for understanding about the object of negation and so forth. So he describes how in a dream various places might appear to us, houses and people and so on, and because of what's appearing and believing what's appearing, then we might feel happy during that dream. We might feel frightened in the dream. So that's one analogy. Then the other analogy is of that he talks about is of the the horse and elephant that is conjured up, the appearance of a horse and elephant that's conjured up by a magician. So he says these are mere imputations by the mind. Maybe we could say, mere projections of the mind. So that's the analogy. Then he goes on to say, so in exactly the same way, all phenomena, everything that exists, samsara, nirvana, everything, when you look for it on its basis of imputation, you can't find it at all. And so although that is the case, although that's how things actually are, because of the beginningless imprint of grasping at true existence, in other words, because of being habituated in grasping at true existence since beginningless time, everything appears to exist from its own side, and then we believe that things exist from their own side. And so then, so this is something that we can see from our own experience, that that's how things appear, and that's how we believe them to exist. So he makes the point that that is exactly the object, the subtle object of negation. Things, the existence from its own side. So how they appear is like they exist from the side of the object, from their own side. That is exactly the subtle object of negation, that existence from its own side. And so he says, so he sort of encourages us to cherish negating that object of negation, existent from its own side completely without leaving anything behind.
Sungzin dini gu ditari ina tusun gyawe gya kyopta mindu singindi kaje nangzu di chene gyuwan tongben namgyu di kandre jirsina gyuwan na cho di gyume ame namgyu inbene chogyu dugos ta rangwe ne chube tongzang gen sange na cho chigi shen la doya chigi chungba chiris doy tuba chigi chung tuba res gen sange na cho tene chung tuya di zawai 시자디 강기톱지레스나 랑원의 주변 동자들레스 디인자 유원나 초디 유르메 아메사디 동반이 랑원의 주변 동반 디기 다 랑단레 샤르용아 인자 주주도스 코와 인들레 줘야 유지 레데도스
가서 주진 최탐시
최탐제 상 겐실 때는 중어지를 봤어. 겐실 때는 중고야디 자 각자 가와 내려서나 랑원의 맞추자 겐상에 나절 때부터 중벌을 봤어. 디인자 유원 나절이 유매 아메스. 근데 인도 단다 코알이야 지겐상에 나절 되는 코 침대야디 년비 dob기 아니 그 도트야지 용야도 봤어. 남규 인면은 두기도 봤어.
No. So then he, in the text we're looking at here, then not even the Buddhas of the three times would be able to save us if things did exist the way that they appear. So then the verse goes on to say, but this ever-shifting spectacle is in truth my changeless mother's expressions. Hence there is indeed a way out. So the fact that change is possible depending upon causes and conditions is an expression of emptiness. It's an expression, or it's something which is possible because of not existing from its own side. It's because something is empty of existing from its own side. In other words, it's because of the emptiness of existing from its own side that a thing is able to change, to transform, depending upon causes and conditions. And so we can say that of everything in, everything that exists, that it's able to function and things are able to change. And so, sorry, the fact of being able to change, the fact of being able to function is an expression of emptiness. So in that way, like it says here, is the expression of my changeless mother. And because of that, it is possible to achieve liberation, because things can change, because things are empty of existing from their own side, they can change, and therefore liberation is possible by practicing the antidote.
나와다 동반이부디 핀주 찌기찌기야. 아니 가와메바 조스르고요. 디 칸데레스 라바이나 지야 마투베 제메 아마 지야 주아이 파르텐 출테 내가 잠시라 고주도고스. 다 지야 마투베스나 랑원의 지야 마투베 안 동반이 제메 아마스. 아니 지야 주아이스네 랑원의 주베 동베 랑단레 아니 겐상에 나조지 샤트야지 여바 인자 아니 균데 땡리기 남샤되게 참아 태도지 용거스 디 인자 땡중을 때네 랑원의 주베 동바 파코와 때야 랑원의 주베 동바 녜베 dob지 땡중을야 야 추코와 녜여바 뭐 텐데 인자 내가 잠시로 고주도고스 파르텐 출텐스 알레
Then as for how it is that appearances and emptiness are mutually not only not contradictory, so in other words, they not only do they not contradict contradict each other. They actually support each other. Yeah, I think that's they help each other. I mean, help each other. Is that they support each other in the sense that when you really understand dependent arising, then that reinforces and actually like implies that they're empty. And likewise, through the force of your understanding of emptiness, then you're able, you're more able to understand how things are dependent arisings. So yeah, so what this verse says is, so that's what this verse is about. This inexpressible mother of mind, not existing in any form, appears in all forms. So the not existing from its own side. So emptiness, the emptiness of existing from its own side, is what makes possible all of the various forms. I don't think that's quite right. So anyway, emptiness is what makes the conventional phenomena possible. Not existing in any form, appears in this mutual dependence and so the thing is that what this is saying then is that it's because of being empty of existing from their own side that conventional phenomena are possible. And this is very much what is being said in the Heart Sutra in those 4 points. You know, form is empty, emptiness form. Empty is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. So one important point we understand from that is that the conventional truth of an object and its ultimate truth, although nominally they are different in terms of their nature, or like the entity, maybe, yeah, their nature is one. So, you know, they don't exist separately from each other at all, even though they're not actually the same thing. So this is saying that making that same point. So form, the thing which is empty. So because the form exists, therefore it has to be empty. Because it's empty, therefore the thing exists, you know, dependently. No. With those first two, form is empty, emptiness is form. So form is, to use the technical term, it's like the possessor of the attribute. In other words, it's the thing which is empty. So form, from the very moment that it comes into existence, is empty of existing from its own side. So that's the meaning of saying form is empty. Emptiness is form. What that means is it's because of the fact that conventional phenomena are empty of existing from their own side, that they are feasible, that they're possible. No.
That teacher tande di sangi jumdendegi matu bishibe dote di tande del lung del danshan pich digi yore kan tenji jungyo ten rawa me mar kanshi ken le kewa tema che tela kewe ra shi yo mai ken la ra le kan de tongba shi kanshi tungni shi de payo yis o di ta pe misibe dini ta kan tenju tongbe to tongba tenju to o tindis cheje ngeya chigi 탑 땜발라 딜라 라버스 페이지 세보 고야 요 마르사티 근데 용거동아 잡아가 셴나 딜라 라버 뜬주 요 마르스 어 상게 중난데 어 가르스나 강시 깬 셴라 때네 중바 인자 강시 깬네 깨바데 아니 랑원드 투베 동베 따르다스 강시 깬네 깨바데 랑원드 투베 깨야 요 마르 가르스나 델 깨와랑 신기 요 마르바스 깨와랑 신기 매바 인자스 아니 규견나 서로 때네 아니 개와도 중투버지를 봤어 깨라 라레 칸테스 어다데 오마레스 가상에만 담버디 고물루주기 땡지되어 종 가서다 돈다지 봐라
I think it would be good to quote from a sutra called the the Sanskrit name I'm not quite sure, but Madhujibit. So the the Naga, a sutra that was the discourse that was given in response to a question of the Naga king Madhu. So there the Buddha says that which is produced depending upon causes is not produced. So in other words, anything which is, what he's saying there is anything that is produced depending upon cause and conditions automatically is devoid of production from its own side. So such a thing has no nature of production. In other words, it doesn't have the nature of production from its own side. Somebody the Lakian Ranjing Yomayis. Then is somebody.
General. Kyawa Ranshingi Meba Inzas. Kyawa the Ramon Tuba Tomba Yinza, Telatene, Kela Rale in Kinjita, Chujing over Natso, Chungtu Chumbares, Kela Rale, one between. That Kela Rale, which is. Or teach you the Kanshi Ken and Kava Temashi, Telekever she human singing, Tenju Tombe Trotch. That Kela Rale Kante sing Tomba Tenju Trotch. And Kanshi Tunishi the Pais.
So at the beginning of that verse, anyway, what the Buddha is saying is talking about is how the fact of something being a dependent arising is something which like supports, sort of reinforces, maybe that's better, reinforces your understanding that it's empty, or the fact that it's empty of existing from its own side. Then then later on in that verse, he's talking about how the fact of something being empty, in other words, empty of existing from its own side, that's what makes its conventional existence possible. So in other words, the Buddha is talking there about how dependent arising reinforces the understanding of being empty. Being empty reinforces the understanding of being a dependent arising. And then anyway, the verse ends up one who understands this will be conscientious.
Petilia Karishagdusna, Sunye Pelishaguas, Sunye. That's Sunye de Pelia Jayati, Penamelona Chishing Sunye tea, Tapen Sunye Pel Jayati, Dinde Redua, Chidarten, Sunye Soton, Shebati, number Keguda, Tishing over Tamje Tonaya, 돈이 달라라도 겨울 줄수는 오만 주베치 지다르테는 숭예 소동을 숭예라 소바기 아니 딜레 숭예나 지신라 소바 돈나야 아니 숭예 나야지 거 고메도 용구도 와서 시바 대 있는 뭐게 유더스 디슝고부터 랑원의 투베 동바 이나야 규계상에 나서지 아니 샤르투야도 고메도 용구레스 디슝고부터 이제 돈나야 돈이 달래 랍도 상에 나서디 기그레스 다 돈다 찍바래 어따디 숭예벨 자주달라 딘데 숭고도 와다 숭예디 코나 지신기 섭다르지 피게 멜로나리아 샤리용한테 아니 저뭐 간에 때냐 지신기 동바 야 쇼직의 지신이 임바로 쇼직의 지신면으로 뭐 탐전 지신기 동바 이나야 코나 디지 나외 차지 고구이기래 멜로 당화지 고구이기래 지신대야 고구이기래 깨 쳐발래 아니 지신기 숭예디 어느 그게 유견 처벌 때네 차르투야 될라 아니 투어 매대바 다 그런 내가 샤야지 예대바 베트나 신체네 아니 최 탐제 아니 내가 간에째야 있네야 랑원의 투베 동배 차들라 아니 니qabla 랑원의 투베 동바를 니qabla 랑원의 투베를 세지 짠네 매바 차 탐제네 랑원의 투베 동바인바 차 탐제는 지신의 동바나시 랑원의 투베 동바인바 동바 이나야 아니 델라 아니 게 나초벌 때네 아니 상에 나초 지 콘데세알로 소버 상에 나초 디게 아니 고메도 차트에 예데바 다디 숭예 별자야디 자주디 오토스르데도와 지다 란주바 숭예 별자다 용구레 좀더 오마기 숭예 별자다 용구레디 단랭기 아니 숭예 별자가 qabla 지 벨렌단 규센티니 지입니다.
So that's something I missed out from before. There are quite a few people, in certain sort of several texts which where which say that that actually that verse from that sutra is really all you need to show that the Buddha's real teaching is that emptiness and dependent arising are mutually supporting and not, they don't oppose each other. So then there's also the analogy of a reflection in a mirror, and so this is something that's mentioned by Chandrakirti in the Madhyamakavattara. So we're talking about the appearance of a face in a mirror. So that reflection is empty of being a face, and despite being empty of being a face, an actual face, there's no way to stop the appearance of that face in the mirror. And so similar to that, even though things are empty of existing from their own side, there is nothing that can stop the appearance of good, bad, and so forth. So again, back to the analogy of the mirror. So that reflection, the reflection in the mirror, is like every single part of it is empty of being what it's a reflection of. It's empty of, every single part of it is empty of being an actual face. So nevertheless, when the cause and conditions are there, then there's nothing that you can do to prevent the appearance of that of the face in the mirror. So, like for example, if you've got to have a mirror of a certain quality, clean mirror, you've got to have the face actually in front of the mirror to get the reflection and so on. So when you have those, then you will get the reflection of the face in the mirror, which is, even though it's completely empty of being an actual face in the way that it appears to be. So like that, all phenomena, they're completely empty. Every single part of them is empty of existence from its own side. and yet, despite being empty or while being empty, they there's nothing that can stop them from coming into existence when the conditions are right, when there are the causes and conditions. So this is the way in which the analogy of a reflection in a mirror is used in this system. It's also used in the Swatantrika system. It's also used in the lower schools. And the way they would use it would be to illustrate different points, but this is how it's used in this system.
Pandendawa tabegi juba zawar riba sunda juba rande riba chikchene ane rangon tube tongbe riba shi chik sung digi duwas koya totos ya tungna na ya de kechimbuji kate ane rangi tsingi tengyu na telo kube ngobo jigbe chir tungni ngobo jigbe gyugyu na tene rimi techu ngoyo mi isine paba nyamsha ishi ngobo jigyu tawasine riba tangbo de tere duwas.
Ja, die sind die Cheekstone an Sugar Samch. And so, yeah, looking at this line 2 in verse 6, this is an expression not existing in any form, appears in all forms. So, yeah, so this is talking about how everything is possible conventionally because of being empty of existing from its own side. So I was thinking that it would be good here to look at some ideas from the Madhyamakavatara, Chandrakirti's Madhyamakavatara, which His Holiness the Dalai Lama is always quoting from. I'm putting it wrong, so I mean, of course, he's always quoting from the Madhyamakavatara, but there's these particular points that he often quotes the Madhyamakavatara on. So you might remember he talks about 3 reasons that are stated in the Madhyamakavatara, plus one that comes from the Chandrakirti's own, auto commentary to that. And of those reasons, the first one is the the absurd consequence of, if things existed from their own side, then the absurd consequence that would follow would be that the Arya's meditative equipoise would destroy, would destroy things.
Tadi kandere dusna shikanda kaina ya ane tigi ane dulu nilula jaba chebe pabe nyamsha hik di jaba chebe kala ane shitine rangon troba chungse samya ane nyeyo marbas pabe nyamsha hik rangtsini yutine rangtsini matu nyebra ta rangtsini matu nyebra ta rangtsini matu sibre o rangtsini matu sibre karte ta 동시 추전티 랑원의 투대바 예반이나 아니 파베 냠샤 이시기 아니 제베 제모텔라 아니 랑원의 마투바 또바 인자 다 랑원의 투바티 신모버 여데 당보 여데바티 아니 냠샤 이시티기 파까기 여베 추니스베 이시티기 까기 여베 인자 모버 지베 유 추니스베 이시티 모버 지베 유 레도야기 티두바스
come va topa insa.
Ta morang tsini tude yobache.
No, lare. Me va topa ra. So how that works is that, we talk about the wisdom of the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise. So this would be, I mean, it could be any object, but it's, like analyzing to see whether the thing exists from its own side or not. So it analyzes, it checks, and eventually it realizes the non-existence of such a thing, of a thing existing from its own side. Okay, so by not finding a thing that exists from its own side, it realizes the non-existence of a thing existing from its own side. And if that thing did actually exist from its own side, that would imply that when the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise realizes that a thing existing from its own side doesn't exist, then that wisdom of meditative equipoise would be destroying the object. Something, in other words, something which did exist, the thing exists from its own side, it's realized that it doesn't exist.
Bena pastor chorubda churubji yobina oda ta nyer chizam chimbe en chud ser ruwas ta yega chawa chewa kapda tinde chema da nime chadre da tinde ji dom yindu migusingi o ta pegal choji duk sambaru ji an chushe le yumba kapla tene o tilya chizam ta nyer chimbe di chegi ko mesedu jene and chudi so the ladu yorwas so the nya marwas migu kade chuina nyawana ne jimetons ta migu de chuina nyer chin de umar njerching zirwa nyer chin ser dogo ajirwas ane de toya menduwas be tinashi ngaran solaya rang singing juba nashi shembatarki jeba chizam 그 차시에다 유인다 가반에 두스 제베 있네 데 제베기 탈리아 아니 니아즈민도 왔어 어디 랑원에 맞추고 따게 된 들어봤어 가다 랑원에 주바 이메이나 그 지점 제베 셀 니아고야 들어봤어
Like, for example, if you see water in the distance, if there's actually water there, then as you get closer, it should be clearer and clearer that there is actually water there. And so then in contrast to that, under certain circumstances, like for example, in the summer, there can appear to be a pool of water in the distance. Actually, it's a mirage, right? There appears to be a pool of water. If there were actually a pool of water there, in the way that there appears to be, then as you get closer, it should become clearer also. But in fact, it doesn't. So this is a point that's explicitly made in Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, that the fact that you don't find that water as you get closer, it shows you that it simply doesn't exist, and that was a misperception. So similarly, when you look very carefully, search very carefully for an object existing from its own side, in its parts, in its the continuity from which it's made, the fact that you can't find it is an indication that it actually doesn't exist from its own side. There isn't something existing from its own side. So yeah, so because the thing is that analysis is equivalent to getting closer to the object. So the more you analyze, the more clear it should be that there is an object existing from its own side. But because when you look very closely, analyze very precisely, carefully, you don't find an object existing from its own side, that shows that it doesn't actually exist from its own side.
Oh. 가데랑 같은 땡기나 텔로고 ngobo지베지 돈이 ngobo지베 유르유나 데네르미 티중고요미스 다디 파베냠샤시 ngobo지기 타와 이제 팀벌 차샤 다 타니에 된바르 베제스도 타와
근데 당기디 그 지런시나 그 랑연이 주베 이나 아니 그 랑연이 마주베 또베 인산 그 메베서서 이시기도
랑연이 주베 임바르지라 다 아니 파베냠샤 이시기 디랑연이 마주베 시베 인자 and papa nyamsha ishite and ngobo jibe ju
no no. Yeah, so the thing with that one, I just wanted to double check. The thing is that if it did exist from its own side, then when the Irish wisdom of meditative equipoise realizes that there isn't a thing existing from its own side, it would become non-existent through the force of that analysis, through the force of that wisdom of the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise. So that's the meaning of saying that the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise would be a cause leading to the destruction of things if they did exist from their own side, and it realizes that they don't. Then so we'll leave it there for that what you call it, absurd consequence, the first of the three. Then there's the second one, which is that conventional phenomena would be able to withstand an irrational analysis.
타니에 대는 넘버 재미차스 간주 뭐보다 남제나 딩이 다시 제 뇌를 주로 두스네 다 간다 민기 타니기 샤바 대가랑기 아니 여바 줘버지 레마도 디 타니기 잡아 들레 양교 잡아 대장 첨바 맞춰봐 되네 양교 제베 있나 아니 덤덤기 제발 치네 니가 말했어. 아니 가들 랑기 친이기 주바지 임바이나 아니 양교 민기 타니기 샤좀 디 맞춤바 양교 제바 챘네 녀용하지 차그를 봤어. 그렇으나 유코랑이 유네 랑원에 주마주 제바 제바가 랑원에 주바지 여베이나 아니 민기 타니기 온 샤좀 디 맞춤바 제바 제바 가네 양교 녀용으로 봤어. 아니 타니 덤바디 리베체 세바 차두고 왔어. 제바 제베지 타니에 원기 샤베 여바 샤그를 마도 지기 리베 제바 체네 군조비치 녀야지 여마르와스 다 랑기 체니 트바이나 리베 제바 제베 가네야 아니 녀야지 차잉고도 와스 가동모보다 남제나 딩이 다정을 주로도 뭐래 주로도 니가 말했어 내니 마이스 디치르 규생 디치나 직dengi 타니에 강 여버티기 타수이 텔 샤바마도 엔 텔 양교 제바 체니 딩야지 여마르스 로
조조요. 그래.
다레 두에 셴레 두에 째서 아니 대다네 강루지네 니고랑 신이니 랑 신이나 르베 째서 째서 근데 다레 두고도 셴레도 니를 간두 째나 가야 니가 말해 니가 당신 내가 봤어
그 랑기선이 줍대야나 아니 리피체나 아니 코 니그라 no So this one, okay, so where we can start is if the thing did exist from its own side, then it should be that when you look for it in its base of imputation, you should be able to find it. So that's called withstanding rational investigation or rational analysis. So to go through that again then, so if the thing did exist from its own side, then when you look for it, you should be able, when you look to see if it's, one with its, if it's a person, for example, one with the aggregates separate from the aggregates and so on, you should find it through that analysis. Instead of not being able to find it, you should be able to find it. And that would be the meaning of saying that it can withstand a rational analysis. So that's the way to posit a conventional object is not through analysis. It's not through analysis. The way that it should be posited, conventional phenomena are posited is without analysis. Kunsobe chudun so de shana ane kasda matak machebe ana ane de shagres this
jigden thakse yong shaba chiribas jigden thakse go wang shazam ti machimba ane 양요 제가 치네 ane 녀지 여 랑칭이 좀 녀요 차그러 봤어 ane 타녀 덴바디 리베제 쇠바 차도도 왔어 돈담 쩨베 리베 ane 녀야 차요도 왔어.
The point then is that conventional phenomena need to be posited according to worldly convention, which means without analyzing. And if you were to say that those conventional phenomena existed from their own side, then it should be that when you search for them in their basis of imputation, then you would find it, which means that those conventional phenomena can withstand rational analysis. And so that's that's this second point that's made in the Majjhima Patara. La. Oh, don't you cry? No. Oh. So in fact, they are not findable when you look for them in their base of imputation. So some people, like for example, some people would say, well, when you search for the object in its base of imputation, then you don't find the object, but you do find its emptiness. And so it's like something is found when you look for the object in its base of imputation, which is its emptiness. No. Right.
That teacher is the Gadusare. Yanjo Umanju Tsichi or Titi Doborda. Tenam Shinje, Namje Chebe, Namdu Yoba, Maishi, Tele Shendu Cuba, Jigden Tabegone Yoba Yis. Oh, that Jigden Tatsu, Tanya Wangi Yoba Chilkam, Shajur Mato, Tilia, number Dungi Jebache, Jeterchene, Niaji Yomares. Tenam Shinde, Shinda Namje number Dunruba, Tenam Shinde, Namje Chebe, Namdu Yoba Maishings. That may do that Yodan Karisna, Jigden Tabewangi Yobares. That Katerang Singing Trubaina, Jigden Tabewangi Yoza Mayimba, and Namdungi Cheba Chebegane, and Inyaji Chagres. Trua, or Tind, Tanya Dembati, and Jibe Jebachen, Namdungi Jebachen, and Nyayama Peji Chagres.
Rang into Baina.
Katerang singing Trubaina, she rang singing Trubaina.
And in fact, there is another verse in the Madhyamaka Vatara which is similar to this, which is the part of the text where Chandragiri is talking about the 7-point analysis. So there he says that this is this analysis is done on the basis of a cart. So he says that the cart must be posited according to worldly conventional, in other words, without analyzing. And not as findable by way of the 7-point analysis. There's a particular, analysis through 7 points. So it would be, it's not posited as findable through the 7-point analysis. It's posited according to worldly convention. And so what this means is when you look for it by way of the 7-point analysis, then you won't be able to find it. So it doesn't exist as findable by way of the 7-point analysis. So if it doesn't exist in that way, then how does it exist? The way it does exist is according to worldly convention. In contrast to that, if it did exist from its own side, so if the cart did exist from its own side, it would be findable when you look for it in the base of imputation. So it would withstand rational analysis. No.
That was somebody doing the Majawa Mikibatawa said it was doing the Majawa Mikibatawas.
Doing the Majawa
Mikibatawa.
Mikaba.
Cake Makik said. That the Kadarang sing down Tonyo over doing Tenim, Kajum over the thing doesn't name it tiny down Tini Kapsu, Ripa Kanshigi, Dada Shenley Kawa Rimish, Rig the Tanya to your Rimimbe, Kiki Kawa Kangim by Gurus. That Tanda di Ranguba Dabuchil Chashana, the two Sinti Lamna Yagioda. Rangubagi, Tashikawa Gane, Dada, Shanda. 니가 다 유명하루니 기가 말에 세인도 될 돈담기 타냐 자기도 왔어. 랑주부터 보지 꼭 가르스나 저담제 랑문을 좀 캐는 게 이거니까 생기 된 담바 생기 되고 말했어. 타냐도 생기 이어랬어. 타냐도 생기 이어당 가르스나 랑기 친이 좀 유신래 랑기 친이 좀 주부 생기와 되고도 왔어. 다 딘데스 제베이나 아니 탄규버기 다변 남샤고 토는 마시아베이나 랑기 체니기 주베 규신에 랑기 체니기 주베 주부신 제 요마르스 디인다 생게 타녀도야 요마르스 다시 타녀도야 깨와 요마르스 깨와 다시 타녀도야 깨와 요마르스 다 가때 캐랑기 아니 랑기 체니기 주베 규신라 랑기 가서 랑기 체니기 주바 네베이나 아니 타녀도 다시를 깨와디 객토고 말했어. 다시를 깨와 여버차를 했어. 간다 타녀도 생계 여버차를 했어.
다시도 까토고 말했어.
다시도 까토고 말을 가르쳤으나 단데디 생계들 랑게 생이 주비 주실라 랑게 생이 주 누구 생계와 객토고 말했어. 어디인가 된 담발 아니 생계 개랑고 치그랬어.
Then the third absurd consequence of existing from its own side that's mentioned in the Madhyamagavatar is not being able to refute ultimate production. So if we think about this, first of all, from the point of view of the Svatantrika system, so for them, when they talk about production from the four extremes, which means production from self, from other, from both, and then without causes, they for them you cannot just refute production from other, because they say you have to add on ultimate. So in other words, they would say there's no production, there's no ultimate production from other. In other words, a result isn't ultimately produced from a cause which is other than it. So, but they would say that you have to say ultimately, because for them there is production from other in general, because the cause is different from the effect and also inherently existent. So in other words, you have an inherently existing cause producing an inherently existing result. So they say conventionally there is production from others, but ultimately, it's only ultimately that there's no production from other. Whereas the Prasangikas, so in other words, they because for that one you have to add on ultimately, they would say you can't say that things are not produced from the four extremes in general. You have to say ultimately they're not produced from the four extremes. Whereas in the case of the Prasangikas, because they don't accept production of an inherent existing result from an inherent existing cause, even nominally, of course, ultimately they don't accept it the same as the Swatantrikas, but even conventionally they don't accept such production. They don't believe that you have to add on ultimately. So therefore they would say nothing is produced from the four extremes. There's nothing, no production from the four extremes. You don't have to say ultimately. You just say in general, there's no production from the four extremes. Whereas if things did exist from their own side, then that would mean they are produced from the four extremes. So you wouldn't be able to refute production from the four extremes. No. Rangdong.
Su rangun trube tongba, su dembar trube tongwa sayade, rangdong remado shendong marwa. Korang ngo di tong, chuzam yino, korang di tongbe ngo truba, o tirwa. O di, ane kane sung yorasana, ane usung liwuli tende sung res. Jubarande na ti tangbarwa. Re, di shiwa chungyaro majung chen chingin tekwana yinos.
No. Dat den nekat de tugrast ko drupsamni ane da ko de rangane tomba yinsang.
Da rang ane rangdong ane rangdong chagmaros.
No. Rangdong re shindong mare.
Ore. Su tongba ni ki tongba mechete, su ni tongba ni das. O tire takar. Su tongba ni ki tongba mechete, su ni tongba ni das. Tete feche yungi doye nala yore. Jimdi dusu nala yore.
Dil lakurata zug.
Usung lu tere.
No.
Tishin shiwa chungyang rongma jura, chwe nimdi chungin te kona ni, chwe koran chuzang ni ne, rangon chuwa tongba res. Tiyan chigre. Ane, yungi doga nala inaya, su tongba ni ki tongba mechete, su ni tongba ni dasende, dile seba roji duwa.
Zug.
Tongba ni ki tongba mechete.
Tongba ni ki tongba. Zug jen tongba. La. La, c'est. No. Then for the fourth one, the fourth absurd consequence, which comes from which comes from the auto commentary to the Madhyamaka. So actually for this Chandakirti in that auto commentary, he quotes from the Kashyapa chapter, the sutra called the Kashyapa chapter. So this is something I think I mentioned before. So there is this statement that what it comes down to is, like everything is whether the Buddha, even if the Buddha had not come into the world, so in other words, whether the Buddha comes into the world or whether the Buddha doesn't come into the world, anyway, things are empty. So what this is getting at is that everything is empty from the very moment that it comes into existence. It's not like it wasn't empty and then it becomes made empty by the Buddha teaching or whatever. So what that means is that empty yes. So the fact that from the very moment that they come into existence, they're empty of true existence, empty of existing from their own side, means that the emptiness that their emptiness is. So there are two types of emptiness that are talked about. There's self-emptiness and other emptiness. Shentong, rangdong, shentong, rangdong. So that what this passage from the Kashyapa Sutra is telling us is that the emptiness of things is not Shendong, it's not other emptiness, it's Rangtong, it's self-emptiness. And the significance of that is things are empty of existing from their own side, right from the very beginning, right from the outset, from the very moment that they come into existence. It's not something that's added on afterwards. And so this is exactly the same as a statement in the in the Mother Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, where the Buddha says that form isn't made empty by emptiness. Form itself is empty. So this is making the same point.
Oh, that tande joja this task res. There's get a share cast was Ribashidi. Read it nanga chimbores. That ngamzo tanda che tamja rangon to be tongba res. That rangon to be tongbe, you send the or Bandadawa Tabegi, Ribashiti Sunguyores. Or Tico Cortelia, rangon to be tongba res sagi. Shevjo pingmin once, that telia, so never yet, or never never tell, and the Ribashitone. And do guati, but never near Pendochimbo or Timores.
Now, these topics are a little bit difficult, right? But the thing is, everything's empty, but it's not just enough to say things are empty. You yourself have to analyze and discover for yourself that they are empty. And for that, Chandrakirti has taught these 4 reasons that I've just gone through. These 4 reasons, 4 lines of reasoning, let's say, sort of like, lines of reasoning. And so, these are very helpful to be able to analyze and discover for yourself that things are empty. No.
So, ya jusen shinda ji ngone shibaina rangyu ba menchegi che tamje ane rangone matuna che di yoba jo matuyati. Ta tindeji taduji 제제 최다 랑원의 맞춤나야 민zam기 아니 자제 탐제 조통에 탄규가 지고치 다 랑규가 면적이 준다되기 창만 바 총알 샤니 아니 탄규와기 아니 랑원의 주베 동백이 규센들 아니 리버시티 도스치는 말 순구도 왔어 된난가 전부도 왔어.
And one very important point, and another reason why it's important to, really go into these 4 reasons is if you think about the Svatantrikas and below, then they are not able to posit the existence of something on the basis of not existing from its own side. They just can't do it. And so then it's only the prasangikas that are able to posit things as existing conventionally, as mere names and so forth, while they're empty of existing from their own side. And so the prasangikas use these 4 reasons in order to be able to, like persuade the Svatantrikas and below, to debate with them, to establish that things can't exist from their own side. Oh. 제는 디시보드 안에 가나 안에 두서 자산다 각사라.
리시 까는데도 방문 이거 전부 까. 그래서 방문 이거 이제 리시고 그거네. 치료되기 당신부터 랑기 친이 그저 가서는 아니 그거 처럼 달리게 그랬어. 아니 랑기버서 보다 지지 신뢰게 버려고 그다음에 아니 주메르게 다제 다다 신이게 이렇게 와서 당신이 당신 요거 주제 디시샤고 디시쇼 가면 주제도 까는데 달래 지금은 신뢰 지금은 이 주메르 지금은 또 담아서 아니 그 당신 저와 카 그런 게
No. So again, that is making the point that, you know, why this is so important, why it's so important to understand these points is because everybody from the Swatantrika downwards, which includes the non-Buddhist philosophical systems, they all believe that things exist from their own side. And some of them say they exist from their own side because they're produced from self. Some say they exist from their own side because they're produced from others. Some say they exist from their own side because they're produced from both. And some say they exist from their own side because they're produced without causes. And so when you negate these four, when you refute these four, then in fact what you're refuting is the idea of existence from its own side. No. 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 So we'll stop there then. No. Saji bagi jojin do tra rirabli jini de gemba de sange jingdu mete buagi tokun namda jing chapa jo edam guru rana mendala kamni dayami Janjo Zenjo Rinpoche Magye Panangi Guchi Yaba Nyamba Meba Kone Kondu Peba Sho Ale Luzangendema. So maybe we'll just keep going with that dedication. We'll leave out the long one for now. Agarera Koe Shingandi Pendan Dewa Malu Jungmen Chenre Ziwan Tenzin Gatso Yi Shape Site Pat Tenguru Chi Tusu Chanjin Jangun Gawe Tenzin Yon Bewe Kunzu Topo Se Chozongo Elemen Tutupa Dajo Dugi Captain Shaw Zange Damba Dawa Dan Tenzin Gibu Shape Ten Togun Degi Chungwa Dan Nika Tat Dendro Shaw Jambe Pao Jita Kimba Dan Kundu Zambo Deyan Tejin Teda Gungi Jesu Dalo Jigawa Dida Tamje Rabdu Mo Duzun Shepe Gawa Tamje Gi Moa Kanla Chotu Ngabat Tagi Gewe Sawa Digun Sambo Juji Rapt Owa Ye Jugi Gabo Zonga Be Juzu Namba Pawala Gigi Zama Shiwa Dunga Malu Sanwa Sho Shingi Tuzun Dan Tewe So Nia Latin Yawa Lozanda Ba Itemba Yu Yuroji Mime Zewete Chinese Timmy Kimbe Wombo Jambe Kanjenge Bezugen Zonga Ba Lozandra Bejabla Sawadi